gray. Oh, and blue. Da-ba-dee-da-ba-da. Arm blue. We'll go with that. I guess I could just. Here we go. Hmm. Oh. I'm looking up stuff that I'm not even. Okay. See what I got going on.
He's been referred to as
Eh, eh. When they ask who hurt you, hey, point my finger at myself, but I think he.
Full bastards, welcome back to the Philip DeFranco Show.
What if you could fill your summer with unforgettable memories?
Yes, I still
Sup,
do.
you beautiful
No, I'm not in heaven yet, but it's better hell than you.
bastards, welcome back to the Philip DeFranco Show. You daily dive into the news, and I have a weird big show for you today. Like, let's just arrange from small and weird and wacky to immensely consequential. So let's dive through it together. You hit that like button, and I will hit you with the monkey, and let's just jump into it.
This is a news show.
What's one move in bed that makes a man go crazy every time?
Oh,
that
you
do?
gotta give him that huck to and spit on that thing. You get me?
So that is American hero Haktua Girl, otherwise known as Haley Welch. And if you're even remotely on the internet, you've probably seen her over the past week or so. With it stemming from this man on the street video from Tim and D TV. And as far as why that clip went viral, you know, if you're like me, you just love seeing people passionate about their hobbies. Also, plenty of husbands sending it to their wives going like,
"Hi, isn't this clip crazy? Isn't it funny and crazy what she said? Should you try that?"
Or for whatever reason, I don't know, there was just something fun about the clip. But also what comes with random out of nowhere fame is just people saying stuff. And there are
My comment on the whole thing was, when you want to talk about healthcare, if you want to talk about sitting all the way the fuck over there, somebody starts talking about like the truth about healthcare, truth about taxes, truth about funding education, the border, anything like that. People stick their fingers in their ears. No politics, no politics. I don't want to hear about politics. Stop talking about politics. Nobody talk about. I'm not going to allow anyone to talk about things that have a massive impact on the world and their lives around me. Me, politics. But then when some like really young girl talks about blowjobs, people build their entire personality around it. I mean, and I tell you what, man, like stream chats piss me off because, like, use Oxhorn as an example. I was watching part of his stream earlier, and I just got really turned off and turned it off because uh, there was like two or three people in the chat talking like out of concern about some things that like they were really concerned about that affected their lives because the presidential debate was tonight, and Oxhorn decided to stream just like very shortly after the debate ended. It was almost like he was watching the debates and then turned them off to do his game stream, or started streaming after CNN did its commentary or something when you look at the time frame. But no, so some people were talking. I mean, it's like this fresh. Of course, there's going to be some chatter. And this is a community where people share their ideas and thoughts and everything. And this is stuff that affects their lives. But then here comes one of Oxhorn's mods, like paying for a super chat. No more politics in chat. It's just like, fuck you. Like, seriously. Like, fuck you. It's just, that's baby shit. It really is. It's whiny baby shit. And you are the problem with the fucking world if you take on that fucking attitude about it. It's so dumb. Like, this has an effect on my life, my future, my family's future, my friend's future. Oh no, don't talk about it. We have to be completely mindless. We have to disengage our brains and act like the people in Idiocracy. So, yeah, to that mod, fuck you. You're fucking cancer. Oh, now tell us what all the Republicans said about her.
There are a lot of false things being said about Haley among the true things. Like, for example, there were big claims that she was a preschool teacher and she lost her job over the clip, or another one about how she signed with a major talent agency in Hollywood. Neither of those things are actually true. Though, I think the one true thing I have seen is that she is making some money off of this. With Rolling Stone speaking to Jason Petit, who runs a family business in Tennessee called Fathead Threads, because he's actually known Haley for years. And when the clip went viral, he knew that there was some earning potential there. Saying, of course, she hasn't gotten a dime from the first viral video that went out. Nobody was asking permission for her to do nothing, neither. Of course, she has because he's money off of this. With Rolling Stone speaking to Jason Petit, who runs a family business in Tennessee called Fathead Threads, because he's actually known Haley for years. And when the clip went viral, he knew that there was some earning potential there. Saying, of course, she hasn't gotten a dime from the first viral video that went out. Nobody was asking permission for her to do nothing, neither. I just wanted her to get some profit off of this deal. And so his brand is now selling Hawk Tuah hats. And while it's unclear the amount Haley herself made from them, Jason told Rolling Stone they've sold 2,000 hats, which means at least $65,000 worth of merch has been sold. Though this is apparently there has been a downside. With Jason saying that Haley's been very overwhelmed by the fame, and she didn't want her face on the merch because she's had some crazy people reach out to her and it's hard to embrace this attention. With him saying he hopes she settles into it, saying it could be a blessing or a curse.
I mean, see, this is why it would have been better off just ignoring it, and why people her age just don't understand. It's like you're a celebrity for the same reason porn stars are celebrities. You're a celebrity for the same reason the sex workers on OnlyFans are celebrities. So, I mean, that's the audience that you triggered. That's the kind of people you've I mean, not insulting her. I mean, because there's nothing wrong with joking like that in public. But like once you record it and put it on social media, that's now what you're known for spitting on dicks. So the people who are going to be approaching you are overwhelmingly going to be people who want you to spit on their dick. I mean, that's just being blunt. That's fucking life, kids.
But yeah, now you know way too much information about with him saying he hopes she settles in.
Poteet is hopeful she'll settle into a new level of viral fame in the end. It could be a blessing or a curse. She may be in the right place at the right time or the wrong place at the wrong time, but I think she'll do fine in the end. Yeah, but this is the thing. I mean, it's like, yeah, you're the girl who spits on dicks.
Into it saying it could be a blessing
But it's more fucked up that people, like I said, have built their personality around this.
or a curse. But yeah, now you know way too much information about that one viral clip someone sent you a week ago. You're welcome. And then another heavily requested but kind of quick story. Marquez Brownlee, right? MKBHD seems to be the least of Rabbit R1's worries right now. Because while a lot of the talk around the Rabbit R1 was focused on Marquez, even though really he was just one of many reviewers who gave it a negative review, that has come and gone, and in its place, we're getting news about a potential security issue. Because a group of researchers claimed that it discovered 4 API keys in the company's code base which put sensitive information at risk. And The Verge explaining that the keys gave access to Rabbit's accounts with third-party services. And in a letter published this week, the researchers said that the keys allowed them to read every response every R1 device has ever given, even ones with personal information, claiming it got access back in May and saying that even though Rabbit was aware of the problem, the company ignored it. Though for its part, Rabbit said it only became aware of a potential issue on Tuesday, but added, based on this notice, the Rabbit security team rotated the keys to those APIs, which caused a brief downtime on the devices. Our team is continuing our investigation and saying, as of today, we have not found there to be any compromise of our critical systems or the safety of customer data. But then the researchers put out an update saying that Rabbit did not actually reset all the keys, explaining that in their first post, they chose to omit one of the keys they had gained access to, right, saying there was a 5th key they kept secret and writing, surprise, surprise, despite their ongoing internal investigation, Rabbit didn't revoke it, and saying that at least as of yesterday, that key was still active, providing access to a history of emails sent on the R1 domain. And then we need to talk about cop news.
Cop news, cop news, cop news. What you gonna do is cop news. That's the name of the segment.
It is. And they are two
Bad cops, bad cops. What you gonna do? What you gonna do when they're shooting you? Bad cops, bad cops. What you gonna do? What you gonna do when they shoot your dog too? Bad cops, bad cops. What you gonna do? What you gonna do when they're shooting you? Bad cops, bad cops. Oh, what you gonna do? What you gonna do when they shoot your kid too?
drastically different stories. But the first one involving one of the most American things in the world, these guys. But if you flip off the wrong person, freedom's gonna have consequences. And that's exactly what Gregory Bombard found out back in 2018. Because apparently Vermont State Trooper Jay Riggin thought that he saw Bombard give him the finger. So he pulls the guy over and he gives him some lip.
No, it looked like you put me out because you were going by there.
Fuck you, hog.
Looked right at me and looked like you stuck your middle finger up in my face.
Pulls the guy over and he gives him some lip.
No, it looked like you put me out because you were going by there. Yeah, it looked like you looked right at me and looked like you stuck your middle finger up in my face. No, I was doing this. Yeah. You must be really sensitive if the trooper stops flipping you on that. First of all, I'm not an overly sensitive person.
Yeah, you are.
And it's the first time in 12 years I've ever stopped someone when I thought something else, so I don't like that insinuation.
But it turns out that Riggin may at least have been a little overly sensitive. Because even if Bombard did do it, he has the right to do it under the First Amendment.
You're pulling me over now.
Reports upholding it and verbal expletives if he yelled. So, even Bombard could tell.
Yeah, well, you've pulled me over. You've impeded my travel because you're overly sensitive. And now you're mad that I mentioned that you're overly sensitive because you are overly sensitive. Which, I mean, come on. That's on the hiring criteria for cops. Like, it is. I mean, it's like the nicer you are, the better your character is, the more level-headed you are. I mean, just overall, the better of a person you are, and the more secure and everything you are, And just like the less shitty you are, the less likely a police force will hire you. And if you do accidentally get hired, all the bad cops, what you gonna do? What you gonna do when they even attack their own? Because they do. Good cops get chased out of police forces. Records are filled with it. Mountains of evidence of this stuff out there. I don't say shit that can't be fact checked. I encourage fact checking. Good cops get chased off the force. You'll get dead rats put in your locker. I mean, we have, who knows how many hundreds of hours of recordings. Is that supposed to be a tooth or one of those little mafia horns? I guess it's a fang on Phil's necklace. But no, we've got hundreds of hours of recordings of cops sending a cop who exposed corruption in their fellow officers or in their police force in general. They get retaliated against because they'll be the person that gets sent to a violent disturbance, but then none of the other units will show up to back them up. And there's been, we even have like actual physical evidence of that happening in some instances, and it resulting in the officer being hurt or killed. But no, we don't talk about that. Instead, we talk about how hard the cop's job is. Yeah, it's so hard. It's so hard to murder your coworkers because they told on you for being bad and breaking laws. I mean, it's just so stressful to have to do that.
Tell something was off.
I mean, you just got done beating up an innocent man and killing his dog, and then you've got to turn around and kill your coworker too for telling on you for doing that. That's a very stressful job. The plight of these officers, I feel so badly for them.
And there was this interaction that happened.
So I have a question. If someone flips you off, what is the citation? What's the crime? So if somebody flips me off, I don't know if they're signaling to try to get my attention because they need assistance or they need to have a conversation. Because obviously, it's not normal behavior, so I'm going to have that conversation.
In there, notice he really didn't answer the question. He just called the behavior abnormal, and being abnormal is not a crime. And to Reagan's credit, and it's a very low bar here because he should have.
What the cop means by abnormal is I'm used to people being afraid of me and subservient to me. Like, I swear to God. I swear to God. Promise you. That's their mentality because, I mean, the ones who aren't born with that character defect have it groomed into them once they get hired on the force or once they start going through the academy. That whole like 4 days of training cops get at the academy. That's like the number one class you go to is how to be an asshole 101. And they get the warrior cop mentality put into them. That's why cops like hiring soldiers with personality and character defects, is because they're going to have that type of mentality that cops want, that whole warrior cop, like, well, this is someone flipping me off is abnormal behavior because I'm used to everyone being afraid of me and being subservient to me.
Pulled Bombard over in the first place. He lets him go without a citation. That is, until they get back into their cars, and this happened.
Overfuck, as he pulled away, he called me an asshole and said, "Fuck you," with the bird.
A few moments later.
Okay, so now you're under arrest for disorderly conduct. Get out of the car. And put your hand behind your back. Oh my God, sir.
With Riggin taking Bomber.
Yeah, and the whole entire time, I would have said, "So you are an overly sensitive bitch." That's what he should have done. He should have done the whole time, because that cop would have been furious because the camera is rolling the whole fucking time while it's like, "Oh, so I guess you lied. You are an overly sensitive bitch." Little pussy boy. You know, it's like you get called an asshole and you immediately prove that you're an asshole. Yes, I am an asshole. I'm an even bigger asshole than you accuse me of. That's another thing. This is another reason why cops don't like hiring smart people. Because an intelligent person would know better than to behave like this cop is. Like, seriously. I mean, and in the end, at the end of the day, oh, you charged him, you gave him a false charge of disorderly conduct, but then you just cost your city thousands of dollars. You just cost your city thousands and thousands. And that's the other thing. That's why I like that. I think it was a place in Ohio or Illinois, but they passed this law that needs to be passed all across the country. It's an accountability law. It says from now on, uh, when cops do wrongdoing, it comes out of the policemen's salaries, not the city budget. And I've been saying this since I was a child. I have been asking, oh my God, I got in trouble so many times in school, even in elementary school, for pointing out that qualified immunity is wrong. I mean, my God, my own family, like I was a child, like explaining to my family how fucked up American police are. And my family was trying to tell me I was the problem for thinking that way. And I'm trying to explain to them, you've been groomed to lick boots. Seriously. So yeah, they passed this law. So now if a cop fucks up, the settlement isn't going to come out of the city budget. It's either going to come out of, like, I think it comes out of their salary. I think it actually comes out of their actual pay. But I mean, I think it would even be funnier if they made it come out of the police budget as a whole, and the police were told, "Oh, and by the way, if you have to spend part of your budget to pay off these settlements and fines, it doesn't get replenished or reimbursed. Like, that's your budget for the year. So if you end up with half your force not being able to collect a paycheck for the second half, 6 months out of the year, well, then maybe stop fucking up." I mean, it's that easy. But I gotta do my job. Well, if you can't do your job under these under these circumstances, you're not qualified for the job. I mean, it's that. I mean, I don't understand why being a cop in America has the lowest standards of any other line of, and this is true, lower standards than any other line of employment. Employees at McDonald's, I promise you, and the proof is there. The proof is there. Employees at McDonald's are held to higher standards than American police. And if an employee at McDonald's does something wrong, there's 1,000% more of a chance that they will be punished and held accountable than if a cop does something wrong. If a McDonald's employee like curses at a customer, they get fired, period, just for cursing at a customer. A cop can murder their customers and stay employed. Oh, it was an accident. I had seconds to react. I feared for my life. It's the same argument every time. Some people do not understand etiquette.
Down to the station and locking him up for over an hour, according to his lawyers. And Riggin also having Bombard's car towed because it was parked in front of a no parking sign.
See, look. Oh, we're gonna see how cops operate. Cops can't operate clean. They're groomed to be dirty and dangerous and insecure. Cops don't want good people on the force because good people won't do the dirty things they want them to do. But yeah, as I was saying, yeah, it's awesome. So they passed this law that, money comes out. I think it comes out of the salary, but it needs to, as I was saying, it needs to come out of the budget as a whole, and they need to be told it won't be replenished because, oh, where was I at? Yeah, McDonald's. Yeah, McDonald's employee. You even curse at a customer and you get fired. Every other job, and working at the post office is a government job. But if your postman tells you to fuck off, your postman will get fired. Your carrier will get fired. But a cop can do all of this. A cop can literally go out of their way to do everything exactly the wrong way, the opposite of the right way. And you're lucky if they even get fined. And you'll have the whole thing. Oh yeah, well, we fired him, we let him go. But look, what happened was the chief called the sheriff's office because that's where they'll pop up working for the sheriff's all of a sudden, or they'll pop up working for like the county. They'll send them out to work in a rural area for a while until the heat dies down and they come back to work for the city again, or they'll move them. You think they got fired, but they really didn't. They got moved to one of the other squads, so you just don't see them. Like one of the jump out vans or something, so you just don't see them. And it's insane. It's insane what cops in America get away with, because I mean, honestly, cops in America, it's like having an enemy combatant right here on your own soil. And your government is just letting them attack the civilians and doing nothing to help.
And even though that's where he pulled him over, within Bombard's lawyers. And we're
You're under arrest for disorderly conduct.
Because this right here, this is the mild version of what happens with American police. This is the light version, the mild version. Okay. This man's lucky that he didn't get beat up and shot.
Let's get out of the car. And put your hand on your back. Oh my God, sir.
with Riggin taking Bombard down to the station and locking him up for over an hour, according to his lawyer.
And I bet you the dude didn't even call him an asshole. I bet you he didn't say it. I bet you the cop made it up, because he went and he sat down and he started stewing about that insecurity or overly sensitive remark. And he's like, oh, my buddies are going to make fun of me because this guy called me overly sensitive. Now I have to retaliate. I mean, why else do you think cops actually argued in court that they don't have to protect and serve the public? And then it suddenly got taken off all the cars. You know, these are the same people who, like, their hair caught their own hair on fire whenever Google took the do no evil off of their wall. And it's like, well, I mean, you know, cops operate with looser morals and standards than any other. I mean, hell, gangs, street gangs have like more integrity because they at least admit what they are and what they do.
And Riggin also having Bombard's car towed because it was parked in front of a no parking sign, even though that's where he pulled him over. Within Bombard's mugshot distributed to local media, and he was put through a whole year of criminal proceedings. And while the charge eventually got dismissed, this whole situation didn't just go away, right? The trouble wasn't over. Because after that video that you just saw went public back in December, the Vermont police took a lot of heat from a lot of angry people. So what did they do? Did they apologize? Eat a little humble pie? No.
No, they retaliated. I guarantee it. This is an unwatched. This is a totally cold viewing I'm going into. Phil's going to tell me they retaliated.
Of course not. They fucking show up to Bombard's door on Christmas Day and they issue him another citation for disorderly conduct. Though fortunately, the local on Christmas Day and they issue
circulated misremembers to local news outlets after his arrest and towed his car from where he had pulled over. Yeah, because they were being toddlers. That it was going to go in their favor. They thought that they were going to shame this man, and they thought everybody would agree with them and be on their side, because that's how fucked up in the head American police officers are. And this is like on an average thing. This is a thing like, yeah, I'll go ahead and mass diagnose all of them, because this is true of just like, I guarantee you like 75% or more. They thought, oh, everyone's going to be on our side and talk about this horrible man who called this officer an asshole, and they'll demonize him and da-da-da-da. And that didn't happen. It didn't happen. It went the exact opposite way. Everybody pointed out how fucked up cops are and how overly sensitive and insecure and childish that little pussy boy there in the big funny hat is. Everybody laughed at him again. But not only did they laugh at him, they laughed at all of his coworkers and his bosses for actually supporting him and being on his side with that whiny shit. And they questioned, oh my God, is the entire department a bunch of whiny ass bitches? And the department said, no. We're whiny pussy ass bitches.
To him another citation for disorderly conduct. Though fortunately, the local prosecutor refused to pursue those charges, so it was dropped. And what we saw is in the meantime, Bombard hit back with lawyers of his own from the ACLU and the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression, or FIRE, with him suing the state of Vermont in 2021, and this month it actually finally settled, with him agreeing to pay $100,000 to Bombard and $75,000 in attorney's fees to the two advocacy groups. With now Bombard saying he's going to take that money and take out his 88-year-old mother out to dinner, though notably neither Riggin or the state had to admit to any wrongdoing.
And this is why it needs to be done like the city who makes it come out of the police budget. That would be perfectly fitting. After everything they do, the harassment and everything, and every penny of the settlement money comes out of their budget for their salaries and their equipment and everything. That would be actual justice if they did it that way.
So while that is a little bit of justice, it doesn't seem like any of it should have fucking happened, which is why you can join me or not ending this story by giving a little gift to Officer Riggin. But one cop I would not flip off is this one out of New Jersey. I don't know if you've seen this video.
I got smoking conditions.
Right, that is Kevin Long, and what he finds inside of that apartment is an old 70-something couple trapped in the smoke.
Hey, you all right? You all right? I can't get my husband. It's fully engulfed. All right, get out. Sir, where are you at? I can't see it. You all right? Smoking conditions.
Right, that is Kevin Long, and what he finds inside of that apartment is an old 70-something couple trapped in the smoke.
Hey, you all right? I can't get my husband. It's fully engulfed. All right, get out. Sir, where are you at? I can't see anything.
Right, and so then with his woman ushered outside to safety, our boy Kevin, he ventures deeper into the apartment, blindly searching for the man who you can hear yelling for help.
Central 3, he's trapped. I can't get in there. The smoke's too bad.
Right, and this is when Kevin realizes the man's got a medical condition and he can't walk. But he's not in the wheelchair, so Kevin's got to get that out of the way first. But then that is when the man's wife starts trying to come back into the smoke to try to help her husband out, with Kevin having to be like, lady, I love you, I get it, but...
Move! Get out of my way!
With him getting rid of the wheelchair, diving back in, grabbing the man, dragging him outside
Yes.
before collapsing to the ground in a coughing fit. And then, because our boy Kevin, he is just a beast. He says his job's not done. He gets back up and he evacuates 16 other apartments. So luckily, the fire department showed up and contained the fire to just that one. And the worst of it is that the couple went to the hospital for non-life-threatening injuries. Kevin was also treated for smoke inhalation, but released shortly afterward, with him then getting honored by his department and telling NBC.
That would have probably lasted my rest of my career if I didn't get those guys out, and I would have replayed that in my mind every day.
Which is why Kevin is our BAMF of the day, and we can end on the note
Hey.
that in a world of Jay Riggins, be a Kevin. And then, getting old.
Well, I mean, I just hope this particular Kevin approaches like his entire job like that. Because, I mean, in a moment of duress, even an awful person, you know, might save a life, pull somebody out of a burning apartment, something to that effect, you know. And hey, and that's great, and that should be acknowledged, and that should be rewarded. But at the same time, this is a big gray world. You can't just assume based on this one deed during a moment of stress and duress that, you know, and that's the thing, man. It's like when I was growing up, you're like, oh, you're such a downer. And it's like, no. We're seeing one moment out of this person's life, you know. And I think what it is growing up as a victim of child abuse. hey, just because this person pushed you on the swing doesn't mean it's not the same person who was just beating on you like they're a prize fighter. Just because this person, you know, made you breakfast and whatever else doesn't mean it's not the same person, you know, who would get physical with a 6-year-old child for no fucking reason, as if there is a reason. But, you know, but I just want to emphasize how that happens. Somebody just, I don't know how that, I wish somebody could explain to me how that works. It's like you just look at this child or you listen to this child, just their presence in the home, and you're like, oh, I just can't take it. I have to beat the shit out of this little toddler. And how do people get forgiven for shit like that? It doesn't matter how many good deeds you do after that, because you still sentenced your victim to a living death.
Older is interesting because you'll notice on like the younger end of things, like there are more milestones. You can get your learner's permit at 15, your driver's license at 16, you can get cigarettes if you want to kill yourself at 18, 21 you can drink, 25 you can rent a car without an extra surcharge, and then there's kind of nothing for a while. That is until now, thanks to Marvin, Peyton, his wife Tina. See, they just opened up a restaurant outside of St. Louis, Missouri called Bliss. It's an upscale Caribbean restaurant, a suburb. And see, Marvin, who's 36 years old, which is a key aspect of this, he's got the people talking about Bliss because they decided that there is going to be an age restriction, right? In order to eat there, women have to be over the age of 30 and men over 35. With Bliss's assistant manager saying the restaurant is just something for the older people to come do, have a happy hour, come to get some good food, and not have to worry about some of the young folks who bring some of that drama. And as far as Marvin and Tina, they said that this age restriction, like this has always been the plan, saying, you know, we don't have any problems with young people, we just want to focus on the older audience. But this policy has now received national attention and a mixed reaction. Many people also intrigued in asking about the difference in age requirements between men and women. In fact, according to Travis Crum, an associate law professor at Washington University, that may actually be illegal, saying Bliss could have set an age limit if it wanted to. That's because there's no restriction on discriminating on the basis of age in federal or state public accommodations law. However, what's problematic about Bliss's policy is that it uses a person's sex to determine what age limit applies to them. And a specific law may be violating the Missouri Human Rights Act, which prohibits...
I see what they're getting at, but I feel like this is boys whining about this. Like, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but I just feel like these are the same little boys who whined that a woman would rather be trapped in the woods with a bear. You know, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Did I read that wrong?
What
I mean,
age limit? However, with no
30
restriction,
for 30 for women, 36 for men,
In
right?
fact, many people also the older audience. But this policy has now received
Well, yeah, but that's because, yeah,
national attention and a mixed reaction.
I mean, on the average, it takes boys 5 years longer to grow out of silly shit because of our culture and the way little boys are raised to stay little boys forever on the right. Conservatives, Republicans, all that shit. So, yeah. I mean, because of the male culture, it's so dumb. Males tend to stay immature longer. Women are forced to, often forced to grow up quicker than men too. Because, I'm going to be out. I'm going to be out at the bar with the boys. You have fun at home taking care of the kids. I mean, that's our culture. So of course, I like the 30-35 thing. It makes a point.
Many people also intrigued in asking about the difference in age requirements between men and women. In fact, according to Travis Crum, an associate law professor at Washington University, that may actually be illegal, saying Bliss could have set an age limit if it wanted to. That's because there's no restriction on discriminating on the basis of age in federal or state public accommodations law. However, what's problematic about Bliss's policy is that it uses a person's sex to determine what age limit applies to them. And a specific law may be violating the Missouri Human Rights Act, which prohibits discrimination by race, color, national origin, religion, and also sex and gender. While the Pates have reportedly consulted a couple of attorneys, they're still unsure how the law will apply to their private business. So they've said that they intend to stick by their rule
There's
and
a
that they'll
maturity
handle
level.
any legal challenges if and when they arise. But also, more generally, Bliss's age minimum, it's brought up the conversation around youngism, or rather ageism, but specifically for young people. With Michael North, a professor of management and operations at NYU who studies youngism, saying Bliss's rule unfairly assumes the behavior of an entire group of people. With him also arguing that ageism is the most socially condoned form of discrimination, saying the fact that this rule was even instituted and implemented in the first place really underscores how when it comes to age, for whatever reason, we don't treat it the same way that we do other demographic categories when it comes to worrying about exclusion, or on the flip side, fostering equality. Though there, the Pates reiterated they don't want to make young people feel excluded, with Tina saying it was never our intent to create this whole discrimination thing with age or gender, anything like that. This is just a personal preference that involved a lot of conversations that we've been in with our age group and felt like we were answering a demand. And so one, of course, I'd love to know your thoughts on this story, but also two, I don't think I actually have an issue with them setting an age limit. Right? They're a private business. It's not like it's a public utility. But I am thrown a little off by the different age requirements if you're a man or a woman. Like, it feels like maybe the original plan was it's 30 and up, and then Marvin was like, oh, but I hate Greg, and Greg's 32.
I'm gonna There we go. I'm being mean.
Fuck Greg, but also I don't want him to know that he gets under my skin. Boom, got it. Random ass different age requirement. And then, y'all, triple digit temperatures, they are here. With all the summer activities, I'm being serious, you gotta stay hydrated. And as y'all know, I'm a huge fan of the longtime sponsor and partner of the show, Liquid IV. You know, it has 3 times the electrolytes you get from the leading sports drink, which is what I need when I sweat. So I bring Liquid IV sticks with me for beach days, pool days, which I find myself reaching for the pina colada flavor. And I always bring an extra stick on my hikes. And every stick delivers superior hydration, more than water alone, with real mouth-watering flavors helping endurance and vitality. And I'm loving Liquid IV's sugar-free flavors. They're refreshing, they taste great, and they have 0 sugar and 0 artificial sweeteners. And the Hydration Multiplier Sugar-Free packs, they beat your sweet cravings without the sugar guilt. And most importantly, same QR code on the screen. Use
Yeah,
code
biofuel.
DeFranco. And then, this situation in Bolivia is wild. Like with a capital W. A Bolivian general got arrested on live TV for mounting a coup. And specifically, I'm talking about General Juan Jose Zuniga, who yesterday afternoon led military units into the main square in the administrative capital of La Paz. Where, I mean, we saw armored vehicles ramming the palace door as soldiers try to make their way into the building, with then President Luis Arce calling on the public to organize and mobilize in defense of democracy. And the two of them reportedly later seen confronting each other in a dramatic standoff in a palace hallway, with Arce ordering the general to withdraw his soldiers and stand down. And sure enough, the soldiers ended up pulling back along with the military vehicles, ending the apparent coup after just a few hours. And with that, we saw hundreds of Arce's supporters rushing to the square outside the palace, waving Bolivian flags, singing the national anthem, and cheering, with the general then being handcuffed and forced into a police car, and the triumphant Arce raising a fist to the crowds that had gathered, signaling the defeat of this attempted coup. And if you look at that and you go, this seems to have played out way too perfectly for Arce. Well, here's the thing. You may be right, because there's a twist. See, as he was being arrested, the general effectively claimed that the whole thing was staged, saying he was actually acting on Arce's instructions, telling reporters, on Sunday, I met with the president, and the president told me the situation was very fucked, that this week would be critical, and so it's necessary to prepare something to bring up my popularity. And so he told me, he asked me, shall we take out the armored vehicles? Because the key thing is that Arce is currently having a fight with the former president, right, Evo Morales, and it's for control of the ruling party ahead of elections coming up in 2025. And all of this playing out as the country's in the midst of an economic crisis as well. And on top of all that, the general's not the only one claiming that all of this was staged, with Andrea Barrientos, a senator for the opposition, telling BBC, what happened today in Bolivia is a really bizarre situation. We can confirm that this was a self-coup organized by Luis Arce's government. Though to be clear, even though this is very, very strange, we haven't seen evidence to back those claims up. Not to mention that all of this came a day after the general was actually removed from his role as commander of the Bolivian army. And on top of that, right, his other comments as he was being arrested, they suggested that, he was unsatisfied with Arce's leadership, telling reporters, we want to restore democracy. The people have no future, and the army has the courage to look out for the future of our children, the well-being and progress of our people. Which is why we saw the country's justice minister saying, the general lies and seeks to justify himself in a decision that is his and for which he will be held accountable in court. And going on to say that they will seek to sentence the general to the maximum possible prison sentence for these crimes, which is 15 to 20 years in prison for having attacked democracy and the Constitution. And then the Supreme Court for the last few days has been like Kendrick Lamar dropping disses accept its decisions. Like just one after another. Except instead of ruining the day for one Canadian, it's stuff that impacts millions and millions of Americans. Well, I'm not going to be going over everything because I don't want to put you to sleep. I am going to hit on the highlights and tell you what you should know. Starting with how the Supreme Court blocked the Purdue Pharma opioid settlement, which notably could upend billions of dollars victims were supposed to get. And while that sounds horrible, the court decided 5-4 along non-ideological lines that the settlement also included inappropriate legal protections for the Sackler family. Right, so on the one hand, this could halt bankruptcy proceedings, but on the other, it leaves the door open for those scumbag Sacklers to be sued and possibly face a little more justice. Then, in a decision this morning, the court also limited the power of the Securities and Exchange Commission to go after fraudsters, right, because the SEC up until today had been able to impose fines based on in-house reviews. And this was explicitly allowed by Congress, but the 6 conservative justices agreed with the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals that this violated the 7th Amendment, right, which guarantees a right to a jury trial. Though the liberal justices disagreed, pointing to the fact that when agencies do this, they're going after people for civil offenses, not criminal ones. And you have critics fearing this could make it harder to police fraud and protect investors while backlogging the courts even more. But as it stands, this is a huge blow to the power of federal agencies and their ability to enforce rules, which notably is a huge thing that conservative groups have been trying to make happen for years. And this is the second time recently the court's done this, with the other involving the ATF's ability to ban bump stocks. Right in there, the court gutted the agency's ability to interpret a statute, which is something agencies have long relied on. Then, in a really interesting one, we saw Kavanaugh, Roberts, and Barrett siding with the liberal justices on a case about whether the Biden administration could force social media companies to combat misinformation about things like COVID-19, with Republican attorney generals in Louisiana and Missouri alongside some social media users claiming that the government was coercing social media brands over the issue and limiting users' First Amendment rights. But writing for the majority, Barrett pointed out that none of the plaintiffs could show they had standing to even bring the issue to court and failed to show what direct harm they suffered. And on top of that, she mentioned that, quote, the platforms acting independently had strengthened their pre-existing content moderation policies before the government defendants got involved. But Justice Alito wasn't happy with the court dodging ruling on First Amendment issues due to a lack of standing and argued that the government's actions were blatantly unconstitutional. However, there was a big issue to the Republican argument in general. Not only did they fail to show standing, but they failed to show even concrete examples of the government actually coercing social media companies.
That's
So
true.
Alito and friends said that was because it was so subtle. And then finally, we saw the court surprise everyone when the same three conservatives jumped ship and made a decision on the abortion case that left room for the procedure in emergency situations. Although the decision was really a non-decision, and I'll explain. Right, Idaho had enacted one of the most restrictive abortion bans in the nation, but it conflicted with a federal law that allowed abortions in emergency situations, including non-life-threatening ones. And a lower court had temporarily blocked Idaho from stopping abortions like that until the case was ruled on, with Idaho then pushing the issue to the Supreme Court, which decided it shouldn't have actually considered the case at all. And instead, it'll just let the lower court's decision stand and it'll wait for the court to make a final decision there. And this notably wasn't exactly an outcome that all the justices in the majority were happy with. Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, for example, wanted the court to actually make a decision on abortion access itself, especially because it just temporarily blocks the Idaho law. And it's very likely that regardless of what the circuit court decides, the issue is going to make its way back up to the Supreme Court to actually decide on abortion access in the situation, which is why she wrote, today's decision is not a victory for pregnant patients in Idaho. It is delayed. While this court dawdles and the country waits, pregnant people experiencing emergency medical conditions remain in a precarious position as their doctors are kept in the dark about what the law requires. But then finally, in what many have described as the biggest decision thus far, the court ruled that while bribery was illegal, gratuities were not. Right? And at the center of this is a federal law called Section 666, which bars local, state, and tribal officials from corruptly accepting anything of value of any person intending to be influenced or rewarded for an official act. Right? So if you're a state official, you can't do something and be rewarded for it. Or actually, according to the 6 conservative justices, you can as long as you're rewarded after the fact and you didn't have an agreement in the first place. Like with what happened with James Snyder, the former mayor of Portage, Indiana, back in 2013. Because during that time, he awarded the truck company Great Lakes Peterbilt a government contract and he bought trucks off of them. And afterwards, he had asked for and received $13,000 from them. He was then arrested and sentenced to 21 months in prison for corruption for violating Section 666. But then somehow he managed to convince the Supreme Court that all of this was legal because he asked for the money after the contracts were awarded, not before. And in their majority opinion, Kavanaugh laid out 6 reasons for their decision, with them starting by pointing out that Section 666 was modeled after federal bribery statutes and not ones that bar gifts, so therefore it was clearly not meant to apply to gifts. He also pointed to how Congress amended the law in 1986 to further resemble the federal bribery ban and not the gifts ban, which makes it, quote, highly unusual, if not unique, for Congress to have a law that applies to 2 separate crimes with different sets of elements. With that last part feeding into his 4th argument, which was that since they have different punishments, Congress didn't mean for Section 666 to apply to both. Right? They were also really worried about how this federal law could conflict with local ones. For example, quote, a county official could meticulously comply with
Say by declining to, but accepting a $100 gift card from a neighbor as thanks for her diligent work on a new park. But still face up to 10 years in federal prison because she accepted a thing of value in connection with an official act. Well, just don't accept it. Just like you do with the other things that you're not supposed to accept. You just don't take it. You just say, no, thank you. Why don't you donate this to a charity in my name? It's that easy. It's what grown-ups do.
with their county's local gratuities rules, say by declining a $200 gift card but accepting a $100 gift card from a neighbor as thanks for her diligent work on a new park, would still face up to 10 years in federal prison because she accepted a thing of value in connection with an official act. And finally, they had issues with the fact that Section 666, if applied to gifts, was apparently too vague about when someone was inappropriately accepting a gift, with the conservatives kicking the issue back.
Hey, I'm going to do all this stuff for you to get this truck thing done for you. You'll owe me a favor later down the road. Okay. Later down the road. Hey, I need $13,000. Remember what I did for you? So you essentially just made that legal.
Back to Congress and saying if they want to criminalize this, they can draft a new law. And as far as the liberal justices, they were exasperated by the decision, with Jackson writing that the law clearly covered gifts because, quote, the term rewarded easily covers the concept of gratuities paid to corrupt officials after the fact. No upfront agreement necessary. She also pointed out that the law was, quote, not designed to apply to teachers
Look at
accepting
everything the
fruit baskets,
conservatives are
soccer
doing.
coaches getting...
Look at everything the conservatives, every move these conservative judges are making. It's childish what they're doing. Oh, well, we're just turning it over to the states. We're just turning it over to the states. If I was one of the other judges, I would show up to work one day and I would say, first off, I just want to thank my colleagues for choosing to show up for work every day and tell the American people through your through your decisions that you shouldn't exist in the first place. Because that's what they're doing. Everything. Well, let's stay silent. Let's stay silent. Let's stay silent. Okay, you're defeating the purpose of a Supreme Court even existing, you moron. There's no such thing as smart Republicans. Well, I don't know. I think some of them are smart and they just act dumb because they're just deep into the grift and greedy.
Gift cards or newspaper delivery guys who get a tip at Christmas. Instead, saying it was clearly laid out that it applied to local officials who receive at least $10,000 a year from federal programs and only when they accept the gift corruptly, among many other reasons. You know, as it stands now, there is no federal statute keeping you from bribing or not bribing, giving after the fact to a state official who just so happened to do something you like. You know, as long as they didn't know you were going to do it, wink, wink. And so you have many saying this decision, it ignores how influence works. Or saying it's rarely an explicit agreement. Instead, it's like a buildup of gifts and under-the-table understandings. Something that justices like Thomas and Alito, maybe they have some experience with. Which is also why we saw so many people clowning on the court for this decision. With people saying things like with the Supreme Court Snyder decision, it is made clear that bribery has a green light for elected officials if it happens after the official act. The court, with utter chutzpah for its own ethical misconduct, is saying ethics don't matter in governing. Big money can rule. What a disgrace. As well as I'm not the only one thinking that if justices were not hip deep in smelly billionaire gifts and gratuities, they might not be rewriting anti-corruption laws to protect public officials receiving smelly gifts and gratuities. And others just kind of shocked at how the court compared Snyder's $13,000 payout to a tip a waiter might receive after a meal. And it should also be noted that a lot of people kind of felt $1,000 pay.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. I mean, did I not just explain how it works? Using that specific trucking example. I mean, and what kills me is they know their constituents. They know the Republican voter is too dumb to understand this. But they've got them whipped into such a rabid frenzy. They're getting everything they want these days.
Payout to a tip a waiter might receive after a meal. And it should also be noted that a lot of people kind of felt like this meant that the justices were claiming they'll be able to claim their own bribes as gifts and therefore everything can be legal. But again, what we're talking about with this specific case, it only applies to local, state, and tribal officials, or there are separate federal laws for federal officials. But yeah, long story short, the Supreme Court has been very busy this week. And then, like it or not, companies are collecting, aggregating, and trading your personal information without your permission. But also with the chaos of life, who has the time, right? Who has the time or the patience to actually request these data brokers to delete that information? Well, you know who does? Partner and sponsor of the PDS, Incogni. They're the experts who can handle this for you. Because with as little as a phone number, old address, or name to start them off, complete strangers can buy records containing an alarming amount of your sensitive information. And Incogni automatically takes your personal data off the market by reaching out to data brokers on your behalf, requesting your personal data removal, and dealing with their objections. And I mean, when I signed up for Incogni, I immediately saw how many data brokers had my information. I mean, it was ridiculous. But within a week, they'd already started their reach out and were having them scrubbed out. 206 and counting. And Incogni's saved me over 154 hours, not to mention my sanity if I'd done this myself. So if you don't like the idea of some rando finding out where you live or work, Incogni is the service that you need to keep your personal information private. So do what you can to take control back. Just go to incogni.com/DeFranco and use code DeFranco for 60% off. That's incogni.com/DeFranco and use code DeFranco to get your personal data off the market. And then...
Ozempic, it's in the news.
Can I get sued for that?
Either way, it's in the news because of doctors. Because even though obesity is one of the leading health issues in the country, impacting 42% of adults, a very small amount of doctors are fully trained to treat it. With, for example, a 2020 survey finding that medical schools spend an average of 10 hours on obesity education, and most are not in a hurry to increase it. And places like Axios noting that under 1% of the country's physician workforce has actually been certified by the American Board of Obesity Medicine, which is a startling figure when weight loss drugs like Ozempic, Wegovy, and Mounjaro are exploding in popularity. I mean, back in May, Novo Nordisk said that 25,000 people are starting Wegovy Wegovy every single week. And a lot of the people taking these drugs might not feel like they're getting the help that they need with them, because as it turns out, they're incredibly finicky and impact everyone differently. But seeing things like an obesity doctor telling Axios that there's just a lot of room for error in prescribing them because patients are supposed to be monitored while on them, right? And their doses and the side effects, they need to be managed, as do diet and exercise plans. Right? You can't just do the injection and call it a day. It's not that easy. And if an untrained doctor is not giving the right support and the patient in turn is using the drug wrong, it can actually make the problems worse, right? Because the side effects with these drugs, they can be wide ranging if they're not managed. A fair amount of patients, they deal with nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, constipation. You have others dealing with fatigue. Studies have also found small amounts of people just can't tolerate the drug and they have to stop. And then on top of all that, because there have been shortages of the drug, some people have to go on and off it or fluctuate their dosage. And that is just this whole other thing to deal with and monitor. With Northwestern Medicine obesity specialist Robert Kushner telling Bloomberg there's a lot of hand-holding when it comes to prescribing these drugs and a lot of tweaking as time goes on. And you also had Lydia Alexander, the president of the Obesity Medicine Association, further explaining to Axios that patients likely require more specialized attention than they might be getting, saying as obesity becomes advanced and the conditions around it become more serious, it's harder to manage in a very busy primary care setting. And adding that primary care doctors, they need more training on obesity prevention and management, as well as saying the healthcare system at large needs more specialists for severe cases. Right, that way, primary care can handle it up to a point, but refer to a specialist when needed. And unfortunately, because a lot of people on these drugs feel like they're not getting the help that they need from the doctor's office, it ends up not being a surprise that they're turning to places like TikTok. Bloomberg noting this is especially the case from the growing number of people who are getting the drugs from telehealth companies, with many of them not providing much in service beyond putting the drugs in your hands. And I mean, some of the people are just left in the dark, with one doctor saying he's seen patients who ended up in the hospital from dehydration because they weren't told they need to drink more water on the medications. And some people haven't only found themselves with a lack of guidance, but with doctors who gave them potentially bad advice. Like one woman who said her primary care physician suggested she treat her nausea with a drug called Zofran, even though that drug could likely worsen the constipation she already had. So she just ended up managing it with tips she learned online. And so we saw Bloomberg speaking to Jennifer Witherspoon, who's built a following of people who turn to her for advice on managing the side effects of weight loss drugs. And this, even though she's not a medical professional, but as she explained, I'm known as like the side effect girl. People have offered to pay me, begged me to start a podcast, asked me to call their sisters-in-law, wanted me to call their doctor. One lady even invited me to her wedding. She's a Mounjaro user herself, and as Bloomberg explained, her content is filling a void for a lot of people. And Witherspoon saying that many of the people who come to her, they got these drugs from non-obesity specialists, right? People like OBGYNs who never told them what foods or behaviors could impact them. It feels like it should go without saying, but medical professionals do not advise people to get their information on TikTok or social media, because misinformation can just thrive there. And there are cases where these online communities might be touting tricks that are unproven. Though, some doctors do say that a lot of the advice is positive. And in the case of someone like Witherspoon, she reminds people that she isn't a doctor, just someone with their own personal experience. And still, a lot of people actually prefer to get their...
But whose fault is this? I mean, once again, you're blaming the helpers for the fucking problem. That is ignorant. That is stupid. You're blaming helpers for the problem in all of it. So it's like the whole thing of missing the point on the age limits things. There's a point there that's getting missed. Why are we talking about, they're so, it's like, I'm mad that the women choose the bear instead of, because bears can eat people, it's an animal, and da-da-da, instead of talking about why the woman chooses the bear, instead of talking about why you would want to make boys wait until they're 35. And the thing is, most honest boys will tell you that makes sense. And it's a good idea, especially if alcohol's being served. Wait until they're 35. Like, seriously. But we're not talking about that. And I don't know why. And then now here, don't get your advice from TikTok instead of, well, why is she having to do this?
their information from peers or online, especially if they've had bad experiences with the healthcare system in the past. Which, I mean, if you talk about people who have used the healthcare system and people wronged by the healthcare system, I think it would almost be a circle. But also, notably, people with obesity and weight issues often have an especially bad go in the healthcare system. Right? Weight stigmas exist everywhere, but they are very apparent in medical settings. So we end up seeing things like a 2019 survey of Canadian physicians finding that 33% feel frustrated with patients who have obesity, 27% believe that patients with obesity are often non-compliant with treatment recommendations, and 18% indicated feeling disgusted when treating a patient with obesity. And while other studies found that higher weight patients often have shorter appointment times, they get less patient-centered communication, and that doctors with weight stigmas often attribute a patient's issues to their weight without fully examining them or interrogating the problem, which, can help you see why a lot of people are skeptical about doctors. And so when it comes to these new Ozempic-era drugs, and you add in the fact that most aren't trained in obesity, you can see how a patient's frustrations might add up quickly. But with that, we're seeing the doctors seeing these online conversations happening and these support groups on TikTok, and they actually want to be a part of them, especially those who do have expertise in obesity, because they want to make sure that people who have turned to social media are getting good information. With Daniel Rosen, a surgeon and obesity specialist who has over 58,000 followers, saying it's the next frontier, right? And explaining how he posts videos or responds to comments in between seeing patients. With all this, if you're someone that's on the medication or you know someone that's on the medication, what has the experience been? Does this sound like it rings true to you? And for everyone else, of course, I'd just love to know your thoughts here. But then finally, today we'll close it out with a congratulations and talk about yesterday. Congratulations is to this week's SeatGeek prize winner. We're getting $500 towards any tickets on SeatGeek. You could be next to see your favorite artist, comedian, or play. Like, there's over 70,000 events to choose from. That's because SeatGeek and the Daily Dip are still giving away up to $1,000 in tickets, and you should definitely enter today if you haven't already. You just add code PDS to your SeatGeek app profile, and it gives you a chance at the weekly $500 giveaway. No purchase necessary. And $1,000 prizes are available to Daily Dip subscribers who add code PDS newsletter, doubling entries and winnings. But then, as far as yesterday and those comments, $500 giveaway if you haven't already. You just add code PDS to your SeatGeek app profile, and it gives you a chance at the weekly $500 giveaway. No purchase necessary.
Well, I thought it used to be just said PDS to your SeatGeek.
1,000 to your SeatGeek app profile, and it gives you a chance at the week.
Oh, well, when he first started doing this giveaway, it was like, if you've bought a ticket, you get entered to win. So that's why I was like, I can't afford to buy a ticket in the first place, dummy.
$500 giveaway. No purchase necessary. $1,000 prizes are available to Daily Dip subscribers who add code PDS newsletter, doubling entries and winnings. But then, as far as yesterday and those comments, almost everything was about that first story, where the old white couple that had 5 adopted black children that they allegedly were using as slaves. And y'all had so many things to say. Lori saying all children deserve parents, not all parents deserve children. Others saying adoption is already an expensive and difficult, long process. I truly hope adoption agencies do an excessive background check on every parent. Though others chiming in there saying our foster care system is notoriously horrible. Making it out of that system with a reasonably loving family is so incredibly rare. Odds are most foster kids grow up in the foster home. This story is not the first.
And I just want to point out that the thing conservatives are running around screaming hair on fire with, and that's the thing, there's no right-wingers talking about this, no right-wing politicians talking about this, no right-wing media outlets talking about this. They have gone totally silent on this story. They are actively ignoring the story. I'm talking, you come up and you mention, hey, did you hear about the parents, keep adopted black kids, use them as slaves, and they'll put their fingers in their ears and la, 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 la. They are refusing to talk about it. Meanwhile, as soon as you walk away, they get on their social media and start screeching about gay parents groom their kids to be gay. This is why all right-wingers are trash until I say otherwise. And this is like an objective, verifiable objective fact.
Of its kind, and it won't be the last. Meanwhile, you had folks like Ash sharing, I have 2 adopted children. They were in multiple foster homes before we found each other, and some of the stories of what they went through still enrage me. And adding, people are often quick to point out how kids in foster care have problems and are tough to parent, but I feel like it's not as publicly known just how awful some foster parents are. The difference is, foster kids are spending their formative years without a real sense of stability through no fault of their own and against their will. Foster parents are making their own choices and failing miserably. And the foster care system is so underfunded and neglected, the caseworkers workers have so little power to actually have a strong impact against these types of things. Abbreviated review sharing, I've grown up and lived in West Virginia for 30 years, and I'm myself a black man who was adopted, so that first story hits pretty close to home. It's hard to believe it went on for so long. I've read that the neighbors called the police several times, but they didn't do anything about it. They were called months before and only responded after the third instance of someone telling them directly that they were locking children in that shed with a padlock. Meanwhile, you had Learning Still saying, 1, that those 2 garbage cans are disguised as humans, but adding 2, the most concerning part is that the adoption system is so desperate to alleviate their overcrowding of children that 5 of them were adopted to the same people and no follow-up was given. There is a lot of negligence going on here, and someone needs to do a deep...
I tell you what, the cops in that county, deserve to be sitting in jail cells alongside these parents, because they wouldn't have gotten away with this for as long as they did if the cops had done their jobs. And this is the thing. You've got these right-wingers claiming they care about kids, but look at this. Look at this. How did this happen then? You care so much that this happens? There's 5 kids in that home. And the cops were called multiple times and did not respond. Just refused to follow up. It's horrible.
Deeper investigation. But ultimately, y'all, all that disgust and anger, that ends up being where today's show is going to end. And from there, I will be sending you off into the night for the first presidential debate, whatever that's going to look like. CNN's been promoting their very specific rules a lot before the debate. I'm very interested to see how it's going to play out, but I'm sure we'll be talking about that later. And so for now, where I'll leave you is how I always do. My name's Philip DeFranco. You've just been filled in. I love yo faces, and I'll see you right back here next time.
Get lost.
Again. So today we are going to talk about general impressions from the Trump-Biden debate and talk about the issues that have arisen because of this, because there's 2. One is far more apparent than the other. So we'll start with that, but both parties now have a major issue that they're going to have to deal with. Okay, so when it comes to Biden, he did not bring State of the Union energy, and he kind of had to. He did not have the presence that he needed to have. And I know somebody is going to say, but policy and position. Yeah, that's true. When you are talking about policy, position, accomplishments, all of that stuff, sure, he comes out on top. But here's my question to you. Do you know anybody who really understands how government works, knows a lot about policy, that is a Trump supporter, or even undecided? Biden already has their votes. He needed to get the independents. And to get them, he had to be high energy tonight. He wasn't. I would imagine that there are a lot of uncomfortable conversations going on within the Democratic Party right now. And I know what everybody's, knee-jerk reaction is going to be. I don't know how you do it. The idea of replacing him with who?
I've got ideas.
So
Katie Porter and
Biden
Bernie Sanders
either has to significantly step that up, or it's going to be a major issue in this campaign. The other problem is on the other side of the aisle.
Katie Porter and Bernie Sanders. Because the moderates, the centrists, on both sides of the aisle would feel safe and confident with someone of her caliber in the top seat. And then you've got Bernie Sanders under her as VP to satisfy people who lean further left. So there you go. got 2/3 the vote between those two people.
And it is far less apparent, and it's some.
And that's because there's a lot of conservatives who look at Katie Porter as a fiscal conservative, but she's just like big on accountability and great at math.
Something that probably won't be noticed for like a week. In Trump's debate prep, he was basically told, don't be a he was told to be a nice person. And he didn't pull it off. Trump needs the independents to win.
He spent the entire time. He's the worst. 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 You're the worst. You're the worst. He's the worst. You're the worst. You're the worst. He's the worst. He's the worst. They're the worst. They're the worst. He's the worst. You're the worst. He's the worst. They're the worst. You're the worst. He's the worst. They're the worst. He's a pepper. You're a pepper. She's a pepper. Wouldn't you like to be a pepper too? I'm the greatest. That was Trump's debate. That was Trump's half of the debate.
His performance tonight, it's not going to get him. They may say he won the debate, but it's not going to switch their vote.
He didn't say anything.
This is
He didn't
shaping
back
up.
anything up. He didn't back anything up. He was talking about like, Ukraine would end the minute I was elected. I promise you, Afghanistan wouldn't have happened if I was still president. I promise you, all of this happened because I wasn't president. And it's so stupid because at no point in time did he give an example as to what he would have done differently, why, which is the most important thing. If I was there, I would be like, that seems like such a strange coincidence. You mean Putin would just automatically stop attacking Ukraine if you got elected? Well, how did you guys work out the agreement, and what's the rest of the stipulations of that agreement? Because that's a really suspicious one, a big suspicious why. Why would that happen? Why is that? Why would these people just not just not do these things while you were president? What's the full terms of the agreement you guys have?
To be another election where people are determining who they are voting against, not who they're voting for. I feel like the Democratic Party is going to be far more aware of their issue because it's more visible, so they will probably do more to mitigate it. The Republican Party, I don't know that they are going to really catch on until all of the fact checks start pouring out. Then they might start to realize they have an issue. But even then, I don't know that they would do anything about it. So both campaigns have major problems, and both of these problems are things that could affect down ballot races. As far as what's going to happen, the leadership of the parties is going to have to make some very difficult decisions and have a whole lot of conversations. So we're probably not going to know immediately how they're going to handle this. But as far as winning the election, nobody accomplished the goal that they needed to secure those votes in the middle. So we'll either have to wait for another debate or wait to see what party leadership on each side of the aisle is going to do, if anything.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's just a thought. Y'all have a good day.
I'm curious about another.
Watcher of Realms here on the first anniversary of Watcher of Realms. So I wanted to share, what's coming and kind of what might.
Watcher of block that ad. You're just like Hero Wars.
My
is Jon Stewart. Thank you all so very much for joining us. We are coming to you live. You may sit.
He wants to shut down this country, and I want to keep it open. And we shut it down. Wait a minute, Jeff. Let me shut you down for a second, Jeff, just for 1 second. I don't wear masks like him. Every time you see him, he's got a mask. He could be speaking 200 feet away from it. He shows up with the biggest mask I've ever seen. You could never have done the job.
The first Biden-Trump debate a little over 1 month away, right here on CNN.
We are less than 2 weeks away from the first presidential debate.
Just 1 week from today.
Welcome to the first workday of the most important week of the presidential campaign.
3 days and counting.
Just 2 days now.
About 30-ish hours.
Just over 24 hours. 12 and a half hours. Say the words.
It's debate day in America.
So sad. I mean, isn't that weird with Trump supporters? Oh my God. Hello. 2 bags of chips, I guess. But that is just so weird. It's like, what is up with fucking all of them? Like, the entire MAGA party has this same like groupthink mentality where their entire existence and self-worth is built on desperately needing to believe that whatever they did or said or whatever it is was harmful enough to someone to make them mad. Or that I guess they just need to think that they're important enough to have some effect on somebody, even if it is just on an emotional level. But like all of it, like they brag about their politicians like I don't know, like some like vindictive person bragging about spreading STDs. It's like, haha, say what you want, but I still gave you herpes. Ha ha. I mean, because it's like, yeah, you're going to be crying when Trump's elected. Yeah, you're mad. You're so triggered right now. You're going to be even more triggered when we elect Marge Green again. Ha. You're going to be, what? Matt Gaetz is a pedophile. Him and his friend were trafficking in underage sex workers. Well, fuck, you're gonna be really mad when we reelect him. I mean, that's just. I mean, it's like their entire self-worth. You hate me now. You're gonna hate me in even more 5 minutes. Calling me a piece of shit now? Well, you're really gonna call me a piece of shit here in a minute. I mean, like, honestly, like, just from my own personal life experience, I'm talking over this way and the mic is over this way. Talking totally the wrong direction. But yeah, but no, just from my own personal, like, life experience, it just comes off as an abuser mentality. Like, was telling a buddy of mine who's actually a therapist. I was like telling him, I was like, dude, it's just like from my own personal life experiences, this just comes off as like literally as an abuser mentality. Like this is how people get domestic violence charges on them. This is how people get child abuse charges on them. It's that type of mentality. Yeah, but it's yeah, it's nya nya, but but these are like this isn't I mean, because it's like I get what you're saying, and there is some of that, but like it's the difference between like it's the difference between the annoying class clown kid and this is how I look at like the extreme this is how I compare like when people talk about the extreme leftists and how they go off the rails sometimes uh which I don't I would argue it's not so much that they're extreme leftists, there's just like some really emotional baggage leftists, I guess. They're very emotional, and their wild emotions may cause them to make dumb decisions that get on people's nerves. But no, it's like the difference between like on the extreme left, you've got like the kid, class clown kid who's always disrupting class and like making up clever names for people and singing annoying songs about people, you know, and like that kind of thing. That kid that's just annoying, you know. But then on the MAGA side of that coin, you've got an actual bully. So on one hand, you've got a kid who's going to like flick a spit wad at you and go, yeah, yeah. But on the other side, the MAGA side, you've got a kid who's going to punch you or flatten your bicycle tires or poison your dog and then go nya nya, you know. or or like, you know, and even on the weaker of the MAGA crowd, like they'll even they're the ones who do the thing where they go to the bully who can beat someone up and do the whole, hey, do you know did you hear what so and so said about you? Yeah, so and so called you names, you know, and then get the kid beat up that way. I mean, that's how I see that, you know, dynamic there. That's how I see it play out. That's what I see happening. And it's like that's why I get so pissed off when people try to both sides an argument. It's like, is there fucked up shit on both sides? Yeah, but there's a you can't say that, you know, a cold is equally as threatening as, you know, the flu or cancer. Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. Yeah. Yeah, throwing the rock. Exactly. You know, what one kid's going to make up silly names about you and da 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 da, and then like when you react, he's going to laugh and run away. But no, the other kid actively hates you just because you exist, and you're walking down the aisle one day and they stick their foot out and trip you and you fall on your face for no fucking reason. Yeah, that kid. The one that actively throws a rock to do harm. we had this kid at Burns got in trouble. This kid was so, and I'm just like, me, I was like wondering, how did this kid make it to middle school? But he got in trouble so many times. His final thing that he got in trouble for, he got expelled for, and I heard he like got sent to like in-house 54 or some shit. But no, the last thing that he got in trouble for that he was doing is he had taken he had taken like a sewing needle, and he had put it, like taken like half of a sewing needle, and he had put it in this like wad of tape that he had stuck to his palm, and he was going around and he would like slap people on the back or slap them on the arm. And the thing is he got told on several times, but then like he was like stashing the thing, and the teachers were ineffectual. They weren't doing their job, but they weren't like looking hard enough to find the thing he was sticking people with, whatever it was he was doing to it. Maybe he was sticking it under a nearby desk because it was tape or whatever. But no, he kept doing that. But no, he didn't. He what finally like he did that to like, I don't know, man, like probably like a half a dozen people or more. And then, but what finally got him in trouble was he slapped a girl on the ass. And she was wearing white shorts, and it punctured her enough. She was like a bleeder person, but it stabbed her enough that she bled, and she was like, I don't know. I don't think she was a hemophiliac. Maybe she's had iron poor blood, but she like bled a lot, like not a gusher, but yeah, got big red spots. She was bleeding. And so there was like no denying it on his part at that point. That's what it took. And then he got expelled. And it's like, yeah, that's your typical MAGA voter. And the thing is when he got in trouble, like he was yelling at some of us, is, you wait till I get back, I'm going to get even. And it's like, even with who for what? But in his brain, in his MAGA brain, he was the one who had been wronged. And that is how the MAGA brain works. I was telling Cass earlier, I was like, man, after watching the debate, I don't mean to kill your faith in the future and in society, but at the end of the debate, everybody's pretty much going, okay, yes, Trump is still fucking evil and still like the worst person on the face of the planet, total pile of shit, dangerous to the country and everything. But my God, Biden is old. Biden is old. Can you believe Biden is old? He's old and he acts like old people do. Oh my God. And it's like, you know, and that's the thing that everyone's, omit dill and insert stomach. Gosh, that may have been me. That breast having 2 grades higher at Burns. I had white denim. She had a stick pin. Eventually got expelled too. Yeah. Yeah, see, that's the thing. Oh my God. And see, and that's another, see, that, yeah, I didn't see that thing. There's a bit of a delay on the chat. that is, I mean, that is wild. I mean, yeah, well, it's just funny though that how coincidental it is, because yeah, if like if you were the type of person who like bleeds easily, and you had been stabbed and like and he had like stabbed you in the butt or the hip enough to draw blood, and it had stained your shorts so visibly that it couldn't be overlooked or ignored. Like, yeah, it very well could have been you. That's fucking wild. That is fucking wild. And oh my God, when her parents showed up, oh, it was fucking, oh, I was so mad that that kid and his parents were already gone. Because when her parents showed up, her dad was a big old dude. Her dad was a big old, and he came in looking for a fight. He said, "Where's that little piece of shit at? Where's his parents? I want to have a word." And I'm like, damn you, school, for saving that kid and his parents from this dude. Because I hated that kid. His name was Sam something. But yeah, the Biden thing. Yeah. Well, I mean, like, she was mad. she wasn't. She wasn't hurt so much as she was mad. Like, as soon as God, I don't remember if she either hit him with a book or her hand. But like, cause like I didn't see the initial assault that he made. I just heard her go, "Ow!" And I remember she spun around. I remember she hit him with an object or her hand, but it was like one of the two. And then before he could even react, she was already walking off yelling for one of the teachers that was like there in the hall. And then I, being the nosy person I am, I like wandered up to get a better listen and a better look. And that's when I saw the big, and she was like pointing at the bloody spot. And then like this was like right before lunch. And then her parents showed up. That's how I got to see that bit when they showed up. Because like I didn't get to see when he got carted off. But I did, but it was like just a few minutes later, I was at lunch, and then that's when her parents came walking in the door. Like, if you remember how Burns was laid out, I was in the area, like, where I was sitting was like closer to the doors. So I had, those tables that were like right there, like inside the little corral or whatever the fuck you want to call it. But like I always sat over there in that corner. And so I had like the perfect view of like the doors and everything when dude came in and he was being very loud. Well, yeah, because they're afraid of the retaliation. Because like I said, on his way out, you just wait till I get back. I'll get even. And it's like, but that's what scares the kids into not telling. Because and here's the thing. And it's not just fear of the retaliation. The fear is of the inaction of the authority because like over half the things you go and tell the teacher about, they just brush it off and ignore it, you know. I understand they have so much to deal with, but personal safety is a bit of an issue. but yeah, you're afraid that you'll go and tell the teacher or the principal, the person you tell on won't actually get into any trouble, and then they come back to class and punch you in the mouth. That's what they're afraid of. That's why, yeah, See, that's why my strategy, because of my stature and everything, anytime I found myself in a situation with a bully, I would, because it was my only recourse, and it was, you know, I would do something severe and violent enough in retaliation right there in the moment that the teachers would have no choice but to, like, you know what? Suspend us both then, you know? That's just the way I looked at it, because it's like, once again, and the reason I reacted that way is because I was a victim of child abuse. So I had the whole like PTSD thing going on. So I reacted very much more violently to bullying than most other people do. You bully me, and like that fight or flight just automatically kicks in, and I become enraged. And it's like, okay, so you push me. Well, now I'm going to try to gouge your fucking eyeball out, and we're both going to get suspended. That's how I approached it. It was funny because by the time I got to high school, my reputation in that area had somewhat preceded me. So whenever I did tell a teacher, by the time I got to high school, most of them took me seriously. If I said, hey, this person, is doing it, they would address it. They would take it seriously. I don't know if it was out of respect or fear that I would stab someone. Shit. Blamed for something he had no part of it. His mom went to the office and threw a trash can. It said, yeah. Oh, there was a kid bullying Aiden, and we had reported it, and it was supposed to have been dealt with, but it hadn't. And then so like it just got to the point I got fed up, and once again it was with Apollo. So I ended up telling what was his name? Dykstra? Dyke something, Dykstra. I think it was Dykstra. He was the vice principal, assistant principal, whatever, that was like handling all that shit. The one that handled all the behavior stuff at that point. But I just got to this point where I just straight up told him, I said, look, okay, this same kid has been reported multiple times by multiple kids, and yet you're still letting him wander the halls and do this stuff with people. And now I have actual, physical evidence, physical property that has been damaged by this kid. And then I said, are you going to do something, or do I have to? Because I'm ready to. And I looked him square in his eye. And then when there was this, like, at the beginning part of the day, I was dropping Aiden off. And then when Aiden got home from school, he said that the kid was got sent off. Like, he got pretty much kicked out of Apollo, got sent off to whatever the alternative school is these days. Yeah, I mean, it's weird. We all have our coping mechanisms, but unfortunately the system doesn't recognize that. To the system, I don't look like someone who's a victim of abuse reacting the way anybody with that kind of trauma would in that type of situation. Instead, I look like just as much of a violent juvenile delinquent as the person I'm fighting with. But, it all worked out in the end, I guess. Deitch. I think his name was Deitch. God, I wish I could remember. It was something that rhymed with that. But yeah, back to the Biden thing, the Biden Trump thing. Yeah, and it's so wild. I was I was thinking of a good analogy for the deal with Biden and Trump there after watching the debate, because that's what. Yes, yes. Oh, thank you for the hug. But yes, like after the debate, everybody's just like, "Oh yeah, Trump is still whatever," but people are just freaking out over Biden's age. And like my thing, I'm like, okay, when you elect a president, you don't just elect the man; you elect his administration too. So on one hand, you've got this elderly ship captain who's in his latter years, you know, but he still knows the seas and he still knows his ship. And even though this is probably his last trip, you know, he's got a good, strong, vibrant crew who's committed to the safety of the ship. Then on the other hand, you've got this elderly sea captain who has gone completely mad and isn't even an actual captain anyway. He's just on the boat because he was rich enough to buy the boat. And his crew is a bunch of yes men that will do literally anything he says, even if he tells them to sell the fucking ship into a rock. They will sell the ship into a rock. If he tells them to sell west when they need to sell east, they will ignore the fact that they need to go east and they will sell west anyway. And they will call anyone who points out that we should be heading east the enemy. You're the enemy for disagreeing with the captain. And that's what we're looking at here. So on one side, you've got Captain Kirk, and he's been zapped with an alien beam that has advanced the age of his mind. And so now he's like a really elderly Captain Kirk who doesn't speak so well and he's very tired. But you've still got the crew of the fucking Enterprise, right? You've still got Scotty. You've still got Bones, Uhura, Sulu. Okay? You got the best of the best on this fucking... They're going to keep the Enterprise safe. And they're going to do what Starfleet needs to do. They're going to work in the best interest of the Federation of the Planets and the people inhabiting it. But on the other hand, you've got a Klingon who has gone insane, surrounded by his loyal Klingon crew. I mean, if you're focused on Biden's age at this point, you've lost the plot more than Biden has. That's what I'm telling people. I mean, fuck. And CNN after the debate, oh my Lord. There was this dude, Scott Jennings, and he's from Kentucky. Very embarrassing. Very embarrassing. It's people like him that make me keep pointing out I was born in North Carolina. We moved here later. Technically, I'm not from Kentucky. I don't bear their shame. I'm a prisoner of Kentucky. But no, this dude, Scott Jennings, and I was fucking roasting him on Twitter too, because this dude is like, they got him to acknowledge that everything Trump said was a lie. And then 5 seconds later, he turns around and he's like, but Trump did really good on Afghanistan, and he did really good, like talking about in the debate, his rebuttals and stuff. He did really good on Afghanistan. He did really good on Texas. He did really good on the border. He did really good. And he said he did really good on all these things. He said, and Joe was having trouble, speaking and stuff, and da-da-da-da. And it was like everything that he listed it was just a total lie, total. Well, it made no sense that he said that because, like on Afghanistan, Trump said Afghanistan was your fault. Afghanistan wouldn't have happened if I was the president. I would have got those people out of there. Everything would be fine if I was president. You're so horrible. Nobody respects you. That's why Afghanistan happened. That's what Trump said. And this Scott Jennings guy from Kentucky, he's well, he was good on Afghanistan. See, and it's like, what the fuck? What planet do you live on? And it's just like Trump. Trump didn't tell why Afghanistan wouldn't have happened under him. He didn't explain what he would have done differently. This guy, he did really good on Afghanistan. Trump didn't even really answer the question. He just goes, "Oh, you're horrible. It wouldn't have happened if I was president." Meanwhile, Scott Jennings is sitting there dressed exactly like Trump. Same blue suit, same oversized red tie. Because that's what they're all doing now. They're all dressing like him while arguing these points. Rationalization. Why can't it be like a Long Island iced tea of all of those? Seriously. Why can't it just be a Long Island iced tea of all of those? Just a shot of each one. And he did the same thing on Russia and Ukraine. He did the same thing on Russia. Well, Russia wouldn't be invading Ukraine if I was president. You're the worst. That's why it's happening. Because you're the worst. Because Putin doesn't respect you. That's why Russia and Ukraine's happening. It wouldn't happen if I was president. And this dude, Scott Jennings, was like, yeah, he did great. He did great on the Ukraine question. And I was mad at the CNN panel for not pushing back on Scott Jennings. Yeah, it really is. But I'm just assuming that some of them really are intelligent. They're just following the fad to follow the money and the popularity. Like the same type of rationalization and justification that Sherry goes through herself, maintaining friendships with people like John Byrne. There's a personal example we can both relate to. The same exact rationalization and justification that Sherry goes through maintaining a friendship with that Eric Leeper. Look at what I know. You saw what John Byrne said on that post because you reacted to the same post. You know what I'm talking about? The post that Sherry was it yesterday or the day before, where it said the world has bigger problems than boys kissing boys and girls kissing girls. And I came in and said, I would add and argue that it's not a problem in the first place. But John Byrne replied, I support the L, the G, and the B, but anything beyond that is just like, what did he call it? Mental defects, mental deficiencies, something like that. Did you see that? Yeah, mental defects. Yeah. And I told him, you're projecting as always. I also screenshotted that fucking comment and put it up, and it was funny because local drag queen Seneca Von Trapp said like on my post, but my friend John like straight up tagged him and said, so you just like, what gives you the right to diagnose thousands of people from your toilet? Yeah. My post? Should still be up. I don't think it got taken down. Yeah, there it is. There it is. Which is why my support stops after the B in LGB. Everything else is a serious mental problem. That's what it was. Oh yeah, there you are. There's your react to mine. But but this right here. And that's why Leslie left you, bro. Oh, this dude. Oh, I'm all 144p. Yeah, exactly. That was the one. That was the one. Someone said that's why so and so broke up with you. Yeah. June 26th at 6:45 p.m. So there you go, 6:45 p.m. But yeah, I think I missed where you got your psych degree. Do you really think you can diagnose thousands of people as mentally ill from the comfort of your toilet? Yeah, I love that. That's why Leslie left you, bro. But this was good too. Sad I missed this. Psychologists agree it's not a mental illness. However, trained psychologists recommend therapy to deal with the poor treatment by society, not because they are broken, but because society doesn't know how to handle it. Gender dysphoria is more a societal issue than a mental one, as it is a natural progression, just like how Teddy Roosevelt, one of America's badasses, wore pink as a kid like every other boy back in his day. Now it's a girly thing. Of course it was bound to cause distress, like every other BS societal pressure and impossible expectations. Exactly. Oh, yeah. There you go. That's why people keep leaving him. Oh, my God. I could tell you stories about his creepy obsession with his friend Travis's sister, who I dated for a while. Okay, my feed's going wonky. Yeah, something's happening. It's not you. It's me. Let me check something.